Diane or someone give me a shout if you cannot see the PowerPoint.
No,
Wonderful.
it's good.
Perfect. So as always, the materials, the great Katie Pullman has already posted everything you might need for today, including the PowerPoint, this and the exit slip and all the other materials that are available for today's meeting. I know that when she sent out the email on Friday, she gave everyone a heads up that today's structure of the meeting would be a little different for a couple reasons. One, we are well aware that as we came back from winter break, many of you, if you're not already in person or hybrid or some mixture of that, then many of you are headed towards that in-person learning or navigating hybrid or coming in and out of remote. And so based on feedback that we've gotten from the exit slips and as we've been working with districts, we thought that much like you all do a refresh, if you will, after we usually come back from winter break, it would be especially a good idea to think about how we plan out this very different spring using PBIS at the building and district level to support students and adults in this very uncertain time. So we are all four here today. I am Trish Schroed. I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation for the Midwest team. You see the great smiley Katie Pullman, as well as Diane Lemaster, who has her beautiful, I blew my hair out with the round brush today. Because we took a staff photo today, so you can even see my eyelashes. It's a great day for all of us. And the Amy Flamini, who is wearing a beautiful blue sweater and chortling silently at me. And we're excited to be facilitating our conversations today. So we know and have absolutely looked at all of your feedback, and I'm going to just beg you to please fill out your exit slip because we really do laboriously review all of your feedback to try to improve each of these iterations of learning, but we can only go with the exit slips that we get. So please, please, please fill that out. One of the things that you've said to us is that when we go into breakouts, but your breakouts are too large, that you spend most of your time saying, I'm so-and-so from this district. And so we're going to make the breakout room smaller. So you'll only have a half a dozen people in your breakout room to be able to facilitate those conversations. And we're actually going to give you the opportunity up front very quickly to jump into a breakout, introduce yourselves, and do some organizing work, because most of our work today is going to be in breakout rooms. We know that some of you have already been back in person. Some of you have done hybrid. Some of you have been working, for goodness sakes, it feels like 18 years instead of 18 months, but you have been working so hard to plan that you all have some of the best information to share with each other. And so we're going to go into our breakout rooms and think about how we install or make certain that we're installing PBIS at Tier 1 with fidelity, and share some of the things that are working so far and some of the things we've struggled with, and come up with a plan for next steps. And we're going to do that using Jamboard. It would be helpful to me if you guys let me know, if you gave me a thumbs up either visually or using the thumbs up feature in participants as to how many people have used Jamboard. We're going to practice really quickly. After each of those breakouts, we're going to ask you to come back and report out on some of the takeaways. But by using Jamboard, every single one of us will have access to each other's items that they shared after we conclude today. So you don't have to hurry and furiously jot things down, etc. We'll use Jamboard to capture the evidence of our learning together. And then we'll close with some next steps, takeaways, and upcoming events. So here's that Jamboard. And the great Katie Pullman is going to drop the link into the chat. And in a minute, I'm going to come out of the PowerPoint, click on it, and just make sure we all feel confident using Jamboard. Jamboard is, for those of you who know, I apologize, just hold on tight. It's like a bulletin board, and you actually get to use stickies to brainstorm and think. And the reason we decided to use Jamboard was, as we start to think about the different components of Tier 1, we want you guys to actually share with each other what you've created, and you can drop links to those artifacts in the Jamboard, and that way you're sharing with each other. So if Beth is doing something amazing around in-person learning and updating their matrix, then Elizabeth could go directly to that artifact later on if she wanted to do like a good teacher does and steal, right? And copy from each other and use your brain trust. Or if Amy had, I'm sure she has, because Amy's one of the most creative people I know, but if she had created amazing new norms for how we do the TFI, let's say, in a virtual environment, I know that's more Diane, isn't it? But again, if we collect our artifacts here, then all of us have access to the brain trust that is you amazing people this afternoon. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm actually going to go in this next slide. You're actually going to see that the Jamboard is linked. So if you've already downloaded the PowerPoint, you'll be able to get to it there. And then Katie also plugged it in. So I want to show you a couple things. One is if you have not used Jamboard, when you go to this link, I'm going to go here first. Your team is going to see a blank screen like this. And you're going to be able to create Post-its and type directly on the Post-its. See this little sticky note over here? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Katie.
We're seeing the PowerPoint still. And
oh, darn it. I forget that I can jump around and it doesn't come with me. Okay, let's go here. Now we're good?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Jamboard. This is the example that's in your PowerPoint, and it just gives some ideas. But I want to show you, I just want to make sure you know how to use Jamboard if you have not already. So when you get put into your group, over here on the left hand are all the different tools that you can use in the Jamboard, including sticky notes. So did you just see a sticky note pop up on your screen? Rock on. So you can change the color of the sticky note, which would be helpful, because if you're working on your first breakout session and you use yellow for all of those examples, then you know that they'll be grouped according to the different components of the TFI. So I can say good afternoon. And you know what? It's not sunny yet, but this yellow is very sunny, right? So I would open the sticky note, choose the color, type on it, and then it's up here on my bulletin board, if you will. I can click on the 3 dots to edit it. So if I was given an example of a matrix and I had my matrix handy in my handy dandy Google, I could just insert the link to that updated matrix right on the PowerPoint. Does that make sense? In fact, Katie, who always makes sure that we're organized and ready for the day, actually created this example Jamboard with some ideas. So you'll see up here the Quincy K5 remote learning matrix. It's actually linked to their matrix. So if you've updated your matrix to get ready for either hybrid or in person, and you could share them right on the Post-its. Does that make sense? Let me go back. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can get back to my PowerPoint.
And Trish, while you're doing that, I'm just going to add that the hope of using the colored Post-its means that you can scroll through all the creative groups and see other ideas that you're looking for if we have them color coded. And this is also based on just our data of the coaches shared folder isn't getting us a ton of examples. So we're hoping by doing this live in this Jamboard, this will be a living document that allows us to share easier with one another. Thanks.
Perfect. So are we back to our Let's Connect slide? Anyone?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. So Katie has been working on breaking you out into breakout groups. Your name of your breakout group will be at the top of your Jamboard slide. So when you click on the Jamboard and open it, please scroll through until you find the name of your breakout. When you get into your breakout room, and you will have 5 whole minutes in there, based on your feedback, you want to introduce each other and say, where am I from and what am I doing in my role? So you're going to, 1, introduce yourself, start with the person whose birthday is next on our calendar, and talk about your name, your district, your role. And then you need to decide on these 3 roles. The facilitator, so they're gonna like walk you through the guiding questions and keep you on topic. Then there's going to be a Jamboard recorder, the person who's creating those color-coded sticky notes for you. And then there's going to be a reporter. That person is in charge of sharing when you come back to the large groups, at least one of your takeaways from your time in your breakout room. You're going to, when you get in your breakout room, introduce yourself, assign your roles, and then open your Jamboard and find the slide that matches your breakout name, so you're ready to roll as soon as we roll into our first task. Does that make sense? Do I have any questions? You can take your, there's not a large group. You can take yourself off mute if you have a question. You could, if you've opened this PowerPoint from the Coaches Network meeting, it'll help you click into that Jamboard and you would have these directions right in front of you, or you could take a photo of this slide, right? So if you don't have any questions, it is right now 2:13. I'm going to ask Katie to open the rooms and we will come back together at 2:18. Introduce yourself, assign roles, open your Jamboard, and find your breakout name.
All right. The rooms have been open. You should get a little pop-up to join your room and note your creative name.
So
start the recording back up.
The links are on the Jamboard don't seem to be hyperlinked, like you have to like copy them and put them on your browser. Did you know that? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I did notice that, Priscilla, which is kind of, it's a bummer, but I don't
But
didn't know another
I guess
way to
I haven't done Jamboard, but you can make it hyperlinked is what you're saying.
No, I don't think you can.
Oh, okay.
So you do have to like cut and paste it out.
Okay. They're going to fix that in the next couple months.
I'm sure they will. And then we'll have to go back and
probably.
Jamboard.
Are we all back?
We should be.
Wonderful. So do we have any willing volunteers, or do you want me to call on groups?
And what is that we are reporting back on?
Yeah, so the ask is that you report on at least a takeaway that you, as you were in the group, we're good with Jamboard, we're ready to move forward, any concerns or any helps? It sounds like, I think I lost her. Priscilla noticed that the way it's set up right now, you do have to copy and paste out the link to your anything that you're linking in there. It's not HyperDoc, right? Any other concerns that we need to address? Otherwise, I'm going to jump back into that PowerPoint.
Yeah, we barely had time to just introduce ourselves and get the roles going. So.
Okay, perfecto. Well, we're going to give you a larger chunk of time to actually engage in the work. So hopefully that will help. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to present from the current slide. If anyone has trouble seeing this, please give a shout. So as we think about Tier 1 and thinking through the idea of how do we make certain that we're implementing Tier 1 in these very uncertain times, we want to kind of chunk this work out according to the TFI, right? We're gonna get ready to take the TFI before we end the school year together. And so as we think about Tier 1, oh, sorry, let me stay there for a second. When we go into our breakouts, we're going to chunk out sections of the Tier 1 to think through what we've done so far and where we might still have some work to do with our Tier 1 team. And our expectations as we work, and again, we're going to have a longer piece of time in that breakout room so that you don't feel as rushed. But we're going to ask, as we think about each of the components of Tier 1, what is working? What have you guys produced as a Tier 1 team that you feel like has been successful? And then share those artifacts, because especially those of us who aren't back in person yet, who are still on remote, there's work to be done there. We ask that you stay data driven. So what is the data that's showing you that's successful, and stay solution focused, right? It is really easy when we've had 10 days of overcast skies, when we've been, at home, watching the news, which we should probably stop doing. Don't get those CNN updates anymore, right? Stay solution focused with each other. If it's not working, then let's work on how we make it better together. So In our first breakout, and to give you to maximize time, I'm gonna really quickly, move through these so that we can get you back in your breakouts and you can share. We're going to ask that the first chunk of time with you in your breakouts that you focus on vision, expectations, defining those rules and routines. So that's TFI 1.3 and 1.8. So have you updated your expectations? Have you updated how you're teaching those expectations? How are your teachers teaching the routines, whether it be hybrid or whether it be in person or remote? And then how are you reinforcing those messages? So when you go into this breakout, which is where you're focusing on expectations, rules, and routines, the ask is that how are you guaranteeing that consistent vision still when we're remote or when we're hybrid or when we're in person? Do you have systems to support school-wide expectations in whatever context you currently exist in? And what routines or skills have been added to focus on, say, relationships in a remote setting, right? We've heard from a lot of frontline practitioners that developing relationship and rapport with students that for some of them they haven't even met in person yet or have only seen 2 days a week is a real struggle. So what are you doing? What would your peers benefit from as far as adding that focus on relationships and regulation skills? So again, this is expectations, rules, and routines. These are the questions that we're asking you to address in breakout 1, and we're going to give you 10 whole minutes to create. And we're asking that you use a yellow Post-it. Katie prompted me with that visual, right? Make sure that your Post-its that describe what you're doing around expectations, rules, and routines are all yellow. That way, when the groups share with each other, we'll know that the yellow Post-its are expectations, rules, and routines. It is 2:23. We're going to have until 2:33. Katie is going to send you into your breakouts, and these are your questions to ask as you work through the group.
Amy, what's your question?
I just want to let everybody know that Jamboard changed. You can only have 50 people viewing. So everybody in your group may not be able to view.
Well, but we're only up to 35 participants, I think.
Oh, so maybe
So
it'll still work.
we might be okay. We might be good.
All right, the room should be open for you to be able to join.
I think when I last looked and I let somebody in, it was like 35. So we're still within
Got
our
it. Okay.
range. Yeah.
Thanks, Diane. I didn't even
Mhm.
look.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want Andrea's wall. Whatever that is behind Andrea, I want that. That's really cool. Looks like a castle.
So, I need to pause.
Okay.
Did you see that sticky note? We can no longer survive. We have to thrive.
Oh, Amy, that reminds me. Didn't you say something about that? About thriving?
I'm pretty sure Flamini planted that, just
I
like she's
didn't.
not drinking a pop.
I
Right,
didn't
right.
plan it, but I really wanted to. I did put it
She's
in the
not
right.
drinking a pop, and I weigh 105 pounds this morning. Don't spit. It's not nice.
All right, Trish, we should all be back.
Wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. I apologize in advance. I'm going to put my superhumans on blast first. I don't know who the reporter is for superhumans, but if we're thinking, and Katie and I and the rest noticed that some of you were already jumping into some of the other components, but I'm going to ask as you share, if at all possible, one, you share what you've done to edit or get ready related to your expectations, your rules, and your routines. So even if you started talking about other components, that's okay. Let's focus, let's zoom in with our yellow Post-its on expectations, rules, and routines. And just one moment, I'm going to ask the superhumans to share out one. And then maybe when you go back in breakouts, if you have time as we continue to talk through these different components, don't forget to add links. So if the superhumans had a virtual learning matrix, please link it up there. I know that many of us are looking for examples as we're developing our own components, and good teachers, we steal from each other, right? So superhumans, who's your reporter? I'm a middle school teacher. I have wait time. I'll wait for you.
Okay. So,
Way to go, Jamie.
all right. So this one was a really good one. Digital citizenship skills, mindfulness activities, and a focus on adult SEL have been prioritized. Increased efforts for connection and engagement with students, families, and staff.
Should not have muted myself while I was patiently listening. Thank you for sharing, Jamie.
You're very welcome.
Can we get at least, let's say, two more groups that would share from that first breakout? We won't make each of you share every breakout. What about the growth mindset gurus? Who's your reporter? I feel the need to hum the Jeopardy theme as we wait.
Oh, we're in chat. I'm seeing Cami saying the Survive and Thrive is from a new podcast, the New Ed podcast. Check that out in chat.
Wonderful. So it looks like the growth mindset gurus, they have a matrix that has been updated to include virtual learning, and a home matrix has been created with parent supports. That's amazing. I know that the guidance that came out from the center gave some support so that you could create those matrices at home. When you go back into your breakouts, if you would think about linking some of those examples so that we could all review it, I think that would be great. Let's look at one more. Those that cause good trouble. Do you have a reporter that would be willing to share one of the items that you've been working on as far as expectations, rules, and routines?
I think the biggest thing that we discuss is just using multiple different ways of communicating, whether it's newsletters, whether it's emails, whether it's phone blasts, and just trying to use some of that new technology to get that information out to our students and our families, what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing. Absolutely, right? There's not one way to communicate. I've never been in a district that has a problem with over communicating, right? So as many different vehicles as we can use for that communication. Thank you so much for those who have been willing to share. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint and we're going to queue up our next. There we go. Sorry. Share. So in our second breakout, and please let us know if the 10 minutes, are we getting the right rhythm with 10 minutes? We'll check in with you again after this breakout. We're going to ask that you think about what is your system of teaching those new expectations, rules, and routines? So I know those of you who've been at PBIS for a long time, right? We do the kickoff at the beginning of the year, and then we have our monthly teaching plan so that we're teaching kids the skills and strategies necessary to engage in those behaviors, especially when we're thinking about all the starts and stops and the crazy ride that we've been on together over the last year. That idea of teaching the expectations, rules, and routines becomes even more important. So as you go back into your breakout, we're going to ask you to share with each other the systems of teaching those rules and expectations. So how are you teaching? Who's doing the teaching? What and when? Is it the classroom teacher? Are other members of your staff jumping in and helping support? What skills and routines are you prioritizing? And then, is everyone teaching, and how do you know that it occurs? So as we go into the breakout for the next 10 minutes, and it is now, as I look at my watch, 2:39, we will come back together at 2:49. You're talking about how you're teaching, what you're teaching, and is everyone teaching, and how do you know?
All right, I'm gonna, oh, nope, someone else did it. Oh, and Alyssa, did you?
She had her hand raised.
Yeah.
Alyssa, can you take yourself off mute and we'll answer your question?
I'm sorry, that was an accident. I was trying to answer a direct message.
Back.
Welcome back, everyone. So while you were gone, Amy shared with us actually a teaching video from Sandberg that we've linked actually in the example Jamboard. I also noticed, I think it was Oak Park. Are you guys seeing my Jamboard? Anyone not seeing it? Rock on. Thank you, Amy. So I saw that in the action planners, they talked about teacher skits or videotapes. So that must be the teachers are teaching, just like at Sandberg that Amy has shared on the example, that it's actually the adults have created short videos to teach. Can I get another example from your breakout rooms of what is your system for teaching that you shared with each other?
So our system for teaching, one thing that we talked about was our district has purchased a program called Suite 360. And so those are SEL lessons that the children are able to do on their own independently from 3rd through 8th grade, and the kindergarten through 2nd graders are done whole group. And we get to see the data from it. We get to see which kid took the lesson and how well they did on the lesson. As well as they were talking about doing boot camp sessions with their students in the different schools, and they're able to do boot camp lessons where things were taught consistently across the board.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for sharing for your group. Another reporter that would like to talk about an example of a teaching system, or Katie, and we were discussing while we were waiting for y'all to come back, the idea of, does it feel like the skills and strategies that you're teaching are different because of the different situations that we're in? Oh, I think we have a chat coming through. Oh, one thing that was suggested as people are trying to paste links into the Jamboard, if you're having trouble, someone had reached out to Katie because they have a document and they weren't sure how to paste it. So if you have a document that you're wanting to share with the other people from your group or with us, if you would either drop it in the chat or send to us via email, we'll actually put it in the coaches folder, and then we can link it if you tell us which team, which group, and which color post-it. And thank you. I did not pre-correct before you went into your breakouts, so that was my misstep, but you guys picked up on it, right? The second breakout was green post-its, and many of you just jumped on board. You already knew. So I'm gonna.
I was just gonna throw in that since no one jumped in on the types of lessons or kind of that last question you had, I think it's important for all of us to remember that there is probably never been a time more important than now for us to make sure that we are teaching skills beyond and not just procedures and rules. We really do need to make sure we're teaching strategies for kids to handle anxiety, strategies for kids who are facing a lot of stress. We really need to make sure that that is on our radar, that it's not just routines and procedures. It's just more important now than ever.
Thank you for that totally on point reminder, Amy.
And I wonder if there's anyone that has an example now that Amy kind of put that out. Is there any examples of what that looks like?
In my district, we have adopted second step for, and we had already started the implementation process, but this year our middle schools, so we have elementary through middle school that's using the second step program, and we ask that they teach that weekly. Of course, we're a large district, so each of those schools, and we have behavior coaches that kind of try to make sure the implementation is going on as well. But that is we also teach the expectations and procedures and stuff, but pulling in some of those social skills and even embedding that into the matrix is what we have encouraged schools to do.
Thank you so much, Stacy.
We've been doing a lot of work in our district to support adult SEL because we're finding that adults are more comfortable interacting and supporting their students when their own competence and skill building is developed. And so we are encouraging our meetings district-wide, whether they're like our admin meetings, PLC meetings, et cetera, staff meetings for the facilitator of the meeting to incorporate the SEL signature practices. And we have found that that alone has helped adults recognize that what we're asking them to do is not some huge thing, right? It's just creating connections, offering opportunities for multiple voices to be shared, including that optimistic closure, looking forward to the next day, and building some of those skills in. So we've really tried the adult SEL alongside of supporting the students through second step or various other skill building or curricular opportunities.
Allison, are you using a specific curriculum for that with your adults?
We don't have a specific curriculum. At one point, we rely really heavily on second step resources and CASEL resources. At one point, second step had the adult SEL resilience during crisis, and I was really hoping they would extend that free through the end of the year, but they cut it off the end of December. So we really pushed that with our staff kind of last summer through December. And now we're back to what's out there and how we just support them with the resources that we get our hands on. Panorama also has a lot of great resources as well.
Thank you.
Allison. I appreciate that, the open sharing. I think we can learn a lot from each other. That's the entire purpose of networking. So I get the thumbs up from Amy. She already sees my PowerPoint. So as we go into our third breakout, we've talked about expectations and rules. We've talked about systems of teaching and had some really great ideas. How are you acknowledging? How are you acknowledging remotely? How are you acknowledging in that in-person learning? And how are you acknowledging both students and staff? To Allison's earlier comment, it is not just students that need a high level of support right now, given our current conditions. So how are you also acknowledging your adults in your building and getting them what they need, right? So they can get kids what they need. So as we go into breakout 3, we want to think through with our pink Post-its. I'm going to remember to pre-correct. What is your system for feedback and acknowledgement? So how are you acknowledging youth and staff using high frequency? So if you were in person, those would be bucks or talons, your intermittent acknowledgements and your school-wide acknowledgements. Do you believe it's systematized? How are you making certain that it's a system approach in your buildings? And how do you know everyone is using that system? So as we head out into breakout number 3, using our pink Post-its, we're going to talk about what we've got in place right now for our systems for feedback and acknowledgement. It's 2:57. We will come back together to hear from each other at 3:07.
All right, the rooms are open. Stop the recording.
Welcome back, everyone. We were so excited. We were totally spying on you, right, with your amazing Post-its. So I wonder, I'm super interested. I know that there was many we called out. Hey, action planners, can you talk to us about what those virtual celebrations for students look like?
Yes, like we had a dance of a DJ come in and do a virtual dance party with the kids. So that was exciting.
I would want to earn a virtual dance. I would like turn off my camera so you didn't see my moves, but I myself would enjoy.
Yeah,
That's
the lights,
pretty cool.
The ball, the lights going and everything. So
I love that. That's awesome.
And then Katie, you found a great Post-it.
Oh no.
Oh no, I put her on blast.
No, Trisha.
I'm sorry.
It was, oh no, I can't remember.
Hold on, I'll find it. I got this. I liked the Zoomer of the month, by the way. Very, very, very thoughtful. Let's see. We saw a lot of virtual stores. You guys are nothing if not creative. And then we also saw that staff acknowledgement. So that was the growth mindset gurus. Could you talk a little bit about your staff acknowledgements?
I'll say a few, but I forget who had a lot, but we had like breakfasts that you can still come and just a few people at a time. And we still really try to do all the holiday or, you know, like the life change, you know, weddings and births and stuff like that. We still having those showers. And everybody's getting cards on a regular basis. We had the elves, you had a drive-by elf thing. So we drove by and got elf presents in the parking lot, but someone in my group had a lot more stuff.
Anyone else?
One thing that, oops, sorry.
It was you.
That
Yeah.
I had shared is we do a staff, oops, can't get in my camera. We call it Bolt because we're the blue lightning, so lightning bolts. So we do a staff one. So anytime somebody helps you be successful within your job, you fill out one of those. And then we do a drawing. And from that drawing, staff members get gift cards, Starbucks, Walmart, McDonald's, variety of different things to choose from. In addition to that, we were just remote. And during our remote period, our principal put together a little cart for those of us that were still working within the building. And on that cart, there were just different treats that you could choose from. Just something to acknowledge those that were here and to lighten it up a little bit. So
thank you so much.
we did.
Wonderful. So we have become, so we always are. I don't know why I ever am surprised at how creative, you know, no matter what the situations, teachers always come forward and find a way to make it work, right? So any other group want to share like something you thought was really striking, either from your student acknowledgement side or your adult acknowledgement side, something that you're doing that the others might benefit from?
We just are working on our parents. Our parents need some support. So they're getting parent awards, and they're getting of different kinds. I can't even remember what they are, but we're giving them like if we have a PBIS unit for the kids, we also do it for the parents. Like we had a self-care unit for the kids, and then we put all these self-care ideas for the parents and gave them like a little tea bag, and, you know, with a thank you note from the principal.
Thank you, Priscilla. So many amazing ideas. I am going to go back to sharing. Right here from current slide. So we've had great ideas around vision and expectations, rules and routines. We had a great breakout around system for teaching, as well as acknowledging both students and staff, the adults in our building. Now let's think about, because our conditions, especially if we're hybrid, going back and forth between remote and in person, or if we're still fully remote, the idea of how we respond to inappropriate behavior really had to shift, because we don't have those like send you down to the office kind of things if things aren't going well, right? So when you go into this fourth breakout, we're going to ask that you talk about what are some things you've put in place to respond to inappropriate behavior given our current conditions. And while you're in that room using your blue Post-its, you're going to talk about, do you have a system for how people are responding to those inappropriate behaviors? And then how are you helping? Because it's such a, we hear this, you know, over and over. How do we continue to support youth in engaging, especially from that virtual instruction, right? We know that many are challenged to really engage youth. So what are some strategies that you've put in place? If people are embarrassed to turn on their cameras, are you teaching them how to create virtual backgrounds, or what are the things that you're putting in place? So as we go into breakout number 4, we're going to use our blue Post-its to share how we're preventing and responding to inappropriate behavior. It is 3:14. We're going to come back at 3:24.
Tricia, would it make sense to ask how our time is 10 minutes enough?
Oh yeah, we've said we would check in. Is 10 minutes enough? Are we getting our ideas? We're good? Rock on. Thanks, guys. Jump into your breakouts. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
It seems like in that 10 minutes, they're creating a lot of great ideas. We're seeing a lot.
Are addressing behavior expectations. There were so many good examples going up on our blue Post-its. I'm wondering, could we get, there was some discussion around individualized behavior charts and superhumans. Would a representative from Superhumans be able to speak more to this idea of individualized behavior charts?
We started with, when talking to parents, because we're a pre-K 2 building, talking with parents on certain behaviors like students not wanting to get out of their pajamas, not willing to get away from the TV, not willing to go to the space where they needed to work. So whatever the issue was with the child, then we worked with the parent to make an individualized plan, and whatever motivated the child, if they did the expected behavior, they would get a sticker or a stamp on their sheet. And it was all worked out with the daycare providers or the parents on what worked for each child.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica, so much for sharing. Who was the school where the principal went around the different areas in the school and took those to encourage kids to use virtual backgrounds?
That was us at Lincoln. We actually got a new gym floor put in. So our principal went and took a picture of the new gym floor logo. And then we also have our logo on one of the walls. So they took a picture of one of the walls and sent it.
Really nice, right? So if kids don't want to share what's going on behind them, I know
absolutely.
When I left my last role, right, I've had to help people have uncomfortable conversations because some adult in the house went behind the student in some state of undress or other fun stuff, right? But if they have that virtual background, it helps not be embarrassed and not have to worry about the people in the background. Any other group that wants to share something that they heard from someone else in their group that they thought they might want to steal and take back to their building or their district?
I'm noticing one on those that cause good trouble about virtual hall monitors and using it to reach out to families and students for creating relationships.
What?
So we had taken our hall monitors from our middle school, and we were just trying to figure out what could we have them do while we're in remote learning. We knew they had relationships with a lot of those kids that already were struggling in that type of stuff. So they would check in with classroom teachers, find out kids that weren't commonly getting on, and then if they didn't get on for their live session that day, they'd try to get a hold of parents, email, phone calls, trying to reach out to the students' email to see if they could work on getting them engaged.
Thank you so much, Alan. That's exciting.
Cool
Trying
idea.
to retool our system to support in this set of uncertain times. So because I want to just be mindful of time and giving you guys as much airspace as possible, I'm going to shift us into breakout 5. This is the second to last that we'll have time with each other to share more amazing ideas. I've noticed a couple of things. It's fun to watch you guys create in Jamboard. One, you're doing an amazing job, right, of color coding your of you have started to add those links. So when you're talking about some of those ideas, just linking in artifacts to share with each other. So I'm going to present from current slide. Amy will tell me if it's not up there. Our 5th breakout is going to be focused on, especially I know in remote, when we're not having ODRs and Swiss and other systems that we've historically used, some of the ways we're tracking data. And also, how are we working with our tier 1 team? So are you meeting virtually, and what does that look like? Are you meeting in person? Are you meeting virtually? Are you still meeting every month? What strategies have you put in place so that your team continues to meet to do this good work? And then how are you collecting data in this very different environment to inform that work? So as we go into the 5th breakout, where we're going to use those orange Post-its, how is your tier 1 team continuing to meet? Are they meeting at least monthly? How are the behaviors different this school year? I mean, we can think of some of them, especially if you're still remote, right? How does it look remote as opposed to in person? And then how are you collecting your behavior data? If you're not using office discipline referrals because there is no office, or how are you collecting that data and tracking those behaviors? We noticed that some of you are doing monthly themes. So how are you using your data to inform your monthly teaching plan in remote and in person? So it is now 3:29. We're going to give you 10 minutes. We're going to come back at 3:39 and we're going to ask you to share out. So how are you collecting data to inform your decision making, and how do you continue to meet as a tier 1 team to do that good work?
Okay, I will open the rooms. And Alyssa, where were you again? What room do you need to go to? Was it growth mindset?
I was just working on getting her in, and I think positive
thinkers.
Oh,
They
positive thinkers.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of my team had to leave, and I had
Actually,
to leave for
yeah.
a minute.
I just
Yeah,
put
you're
two amazing people. There is
Okay, sounds good.
Back, everyone. I was so excited. I am ready, willing, and able. So we were talking about how creative, right? We're trying to, given all that we faced the last year, just all that you guys have learned and how you've pivoted and how you've just recovered, and you're not just surviving, you're thriving, right? Amy Flamini. So I want to hear, so those that cause good trouble, right? It said you guys have, someone in your group has only had 5 referrals district-wide. So instead you're looking at other forms of data. Can you talk about that data that you're looking at?
So we're looking more at student engagement, whether they're getting on their sessions or not. We, like everybody, student grades are horrendous in not getting work turned in and that. So just trying to find ways to promote that. We had a building that went from like 30% of the students were attending all live sessions. So the 4 they had each of the 2 different days, they brought that up to about anywhere between 40 to 60%, depending on the grade level, which is exciting because that actually is really good attendance in this remote setting in that. So they help to promote that, taking a look at, just other things other than just behavior. And it's really kind of expanded their thought, and honestly looking more at what is the causing behavior. What are some things that lead up? If you're not engaged in learning, if you're not attending, you're more likely to misbehave. And so I'm just excited to see those discussions go that way, to look at the pre-stuff so that maybe we avoid those major referrals, and it's things they can manage in the classroom.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Alan. And I also saw that, so I just want to, as we were, again, totally stalking your jam boards and getting excited and learning from you, this whole idea of this way of being, right, has forced us to be innovators. And it really has pushed us to really make that move more towards MTSS, the bringing together of behavior and academics. Because Alan, to your point, and some of the points we're seeing on other Post-its on the Jamboards, we're really starting to see the underlying causation, the underlying issues that are causing kids not to be successful. And it really pushes us to think about academics and behaviors together, because having those school success behaviors help us get to better academics. And so it's going to be interesting to see all that we've learned and how we apply that moving forward. Daydream Believers, if you don't have that song stuck in your head, you are too young. You guys talked about some of the different survey data that you're using. Can you talk to us a little bit about that survey data, Daydream Believers?
Sure, that
Okay,
was
I'm
us.
supposed to be the facilitator that talks it out, but Maggie definitely had a numerous. Are you there, Maggie? I'm sorry, I promised to do the talking, but I think your district had like 4 different Google Docs out there with surveys that you were doing.
Yeah, no problem. So we had a couple of parent surveys go out. So we surveyed parents the first month we were in school, asking how their students were doing, and asking a set of questions, and then identifying who their student was and if they needed more support. Then we did that again this winter. With students, we have student perception data too. So we survey students at the beginning of the year and now, asking them how they're feeling and how they're doing. And And then parents have a weekly opportunity to request support for their students. So if they feel like there's a tier 2 intervention they'd like to get their student into, they can make a submission to the PBIS team. Teachers also can do that too. So if teachers feel like there's a concern that might be met through a tier 2 system, they can make a referral there. Or if they feel like a student is disengaged and they're having trouble connecting with them, they can request a brainstorming meeting. So we have like Google Forms galore. When we used to be looking at just BERS last year, now we have very few BERS. We found that like we just don't have, our big behaviors were aggression, our big behaviors were disrespect, and we just don't have that. We just have disengagement more so. So we've moved away from that to more of this more subjective and perspective data.
Thank you so much, Maggie and the Daydream Believers. Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to throw in case you haven't been on any of the network meetings in the recent past, you know, one of the, a lot of people really tried to jump in, like Maggie was saying, the kind of screeners, those are screeners they're using, but they're not implementing a brand new formal screener. Like they haven't adopted a formal screener that they purchased and then they rolled out. And really the recommendation by the people who do the research around universal screening is don't adopt a new big universal screening program. Now is not the time to do that because the screeners aren't normed for pandemic. And so let's do more like exactly like what Maggie was saying.
Thank you, Amy. So I want to bring us into the last breakout. I want to just thank you. I think that we're getting great ideas from each other. I also want to make sure that I am sharing my screen. So this last breakout, and some of you have already jumped to this, right? As you were thinking about how you acknowledge the adults in your building, you were really also already talking about how you're supporting each other in your own wellness, right? Because if we're dysregulated, we cannot help support students who are dysregulated. So the last breakout we're going to send you into, breakout 6, is not measured by the TFI, but it helps support all of the measures that we measure with the TFI. And that is, how are you supporting staff wellness in this very uncertain time, right? So when you think about that, how are staff being supported with your own safe, consistent, predictable environments, connecting in relationships while some of us are in the buildings and some of us are at home and going back and forth? How are we focusing on our own SEB competencies? We know Allison had to leave, but she gave us an example earlier, Allison Freetag, of how they've been working in her district on just that, those SEB competencies for adults. And then how are we actively working on our own regulation? Like, we have to acknowledge how many things have compounded each other over the course of the last year between the pandemic and the social unrest and the election and the fallout from that. So how are we as adults regulating ourselves so that we can support kids during these very troubling times? And so we're going to ask you to use a white Post-it to talk about the systems of support that you have for staff. It is now 3:46. We're going to come back. I'm going to ask that we come back at 3:55 and we'll have a shortened share out, and then we're going to kind of wrap up for the day with each other and ask you how today's session worked for you.
Give me 1 second. I'm getting somebody that's in a room by themselves. Shoot, someone opened it.
Oh, geez.
Well, let's highlight just a couple ideas that we saw on Jamboard, and I think Trisha had a couple ready. Amy, you called one out. It was maybe.
I think it might have been the Good Trouble group. Did somebody have something in there about having like a therapist come in and offer some support for staff?
Yeah, so we're going to have end of February, 1st of March, we'll have 2 sessions where community therapist is going to come in and just talk about self-care and a wellness plan and that type of stuff. And then offer out to do a 15-minute one-on-one with staff to kind of put those things together. Also talk about what we have in our insurance plan for going out to get into therapy and what we have within our district for those supports and that type of stuff.
Awesome,
Alan,
Alan.
that's really awesome. And Alan, I'm not sure if you've ever participated or seen any of our materials about creating a culture of self-care, so that all the burden doesn't fall on individual educators, but it's also about creating a system in your building that supports individuals taking care of themselves. But all that material's on our website under trauma and free, and we would love for you to use it if it's helpful.
I've looked at it, but I definitely need to review that before we get to these sessions, just for some more
Right.
resources.
Amy, what I liked about you did a presentation at our Wisconsin state conference, and you talked about like our biases. Like, what's your first thought when you see a teacher leave right away for a Zumba class, or a principal saying no calls, or somebody working through a lunch? And I found that to be really helpful. I've used that with staff. And they say, yeah, that's we're not talking the talk, or however, doing the walking the walk or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, good, Madeline. I'm glad that was helpful. And Alan, I'd be happy to walk through any of it with you if you wanted to use it.
All right, we're gonna thank you guys for sharing out and lots of other ideas on those Jam boards. We really love seeing all the ideas being populated. And so from our perspective, it seemed like conversations were generating lots of sharing, but we'd love to hear from you on your takeaway from how today's structure went. How did that go for sharing out ideas and using Jamboard? So if you would share some feedback in the chat, we'd love that. We also have a formal exit ticket that we'll drop in the chat here, or it's linked with the materials for today. So we'd really love your feedback. We keep taking that and trying to adjust as we continue with coaches meetings through the rest of the year. We want to remind you that there are additional supports out there, the additional coaches network meetings that will continue monthly, and the topics are now posted and ready for registration. We're also adding a new support this semester, and we're calling it Targeted Coaching for Hot Topics. These will be 75-minute sessions, limited to 15 people per session. The registration cost will be $30, and it's very topic specific. So the idea being that you are able to bring in your questions and your challenges that you're having around that topic, and a Midwest team member will be there to help facilitate that conversation and some problem solving around that topic. So check out the full list of those topics happening. You see January here on your screen, and registration is open for those. I'll continue to check out what training we have. We have added a few trainings to that calendar, so continue to look at that calendar. Reach out to us for support. You can find all of our emails under our contact us page. Follow us on social media, and we'd love to hear your feedback with the exit ticket, and I think Trisha dropped that into chat for us. So really appreciate you all being here with us today and sharing and networking with us, and we hope that you found it beneficial as well. And I cannot find my stop share button at the moment, but we will wrap up for today and continue. You can flip back through that Jamboard. It will remain posted on our Coaches Network meeting page. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Super helpful
Thanks.
for us to know if you like this kind of format or if you like the present kind of format more. So thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Take care. Good to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, a couple of things in chat. They said they like